Thank you for tuning in to another episode of InRange. Today I'm bringing you the quintessential guns of 1873. I've already done one video about this topic, deep diving into the cartridges, the gun's design, and why they came about. But 1873 was a watershed year in regards to firearms development in the United States, and two very important guns came out at that time. One was the 1873 Winchester lever-action rifle, which of course was an iteration of the original Henry rifle, modified and improved with a lot of different elements that made it a more capable gun. Again, watch the other video if you want to learn more about that. But today I'm going to be running this on the clock at the two-gun match and try to give you guys a vision into how you could use this gun dynamically in the real world under combat or any other form of stress. Now, I have modified this slightly. I have added sling swivels to this. The original guns typically did not come with sling swivels, although they could be ordered with them. But sling swivels are pretty important in this environment, and I think they're important in the field today. Back then, you'd probably have a scabbard on your saddle or something like that, but sling swivels were a thing, so that's not completely wrong. I have also added a leather wrap to the lever itself, and that is so that when you're cycling the lever, you're not busting up your knuckles under speed. That was something that was done in the day as well. This is an Uberti replica, a beautiful version of it, with a 24.5-inch barrel, which was exactly the same dimensions of the gun back in the day. However, it is chambered in 45 Colt, and the reason I went with 45 Colt is because I have a boatload of 45 Colt brass from back when I shot cowboy action shooting, and in 2019, 45 Colt can replicate the ballistics of 44 Winchester centerfire directly. The original gun was produced only in 4440 or 44 WCF, and it was a 200 grain bullet, leaving the barrel with about 1,350 feet per second behind it. I have loaded my 45 Colt today with 200 grain bullets at 1,350 feet per second using black powder, so hopefully you'll enjoy seeing that. So there is no difference in the performance or handling of this gun. I'm just dealing with a different cartridge dimension to make it easier on myself. For my pistol, I'm using the other quintessential gun from 1873. Again, another Uberti replica, but a beautiful version thereof. This is the 1873 Single Action Army, or Peacemaker. This is a 5.5-inch barrel chambered in 45 Colt, as it was in the day. This is the first generation model with a single screw, commonly referred to as the black powder model, although black powder was a thing for a long time, but you'll see that today. This has a firing pin on the hammer, just like the originals did, and there is really no modification to this gun. This is a direct reproduction by Uberti of the original 1873 Colt Single Action Army. Now, later, both of these guns were chambered in their proprietary cartridges of 4440 or 44 WCF and 45 Colts, as it was referred to in the day. Later on, Colt realized that there was a market for this, and they chambered their single action armies in 44 Winchester centerfire, renaming it to 4440 to get rid of the name Winchester, and that allowed the plainsmen at the time, or frontiersmen, to have a rifle and a pistol chambered in the exact same cartridge, which was a really useful thing in a place where resupply might have been a challenging endeavor. But today we're going to run this on the clock at the two-gun match. We're going up against a lot of modern guns, so it should be an interesting environment. I think the stages are going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully you'll get a little bit of an interest and understanding about how these guns could have been used in a dynamic environment under stress, time or otherwise.
So standard single action army practices.
Yep. Nothing like speed reloading these guns. Okay.
Hit. 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 Nothing like the smell of black powder in the morning. Hit! A little left. Hit! 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 Hit!
My mining papers, my claim!
A little low.
rifle.
So one little thing that people don't think about is that those guns back in the day actually needed their screws to be tightened regularly, and things like this were a real thing. It's a knife that's been converted to be a screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is check on my single action Army whether or not that black powder screw requires tightening or not. And it did. So these weren't for high volume of fire, but little knives like this make a big difference, and it's something you didn't have to carry two of. You had a knife and a screwdriver. So one of the things about black powder is it leaves a lot of residue behind because it doesn't burn very efficiently. And as a result, if you look at the gun now at this point, after multiple rounds and lots of shots fired, this should be brass colored and it is black. And if you are not really fierce with the action, it's possible for the lifter to kind of get stuck, like that. In fact, it is. So the way to fix that is you actually have to have a tool and push it down, which then you can keep running. And if you run it fiercely, this is not a problem. However, as you can see, it's not going to stop you from being able to shoot. However, the fix for black powder fouling is real simple. We're in the desert, and I don't have a lot of water available, but what does clear black powder fouling is just water. What I do have is spit. And as you'll see, that problem's solved. Now, that said, if we have water, there's no reason to not just use it. And as you can see, the problem is remediated. So, the simple fix for black powder fouling is just water. If you don't have water, use spit, and it'll keep this gun running reliably in the field without any problems. And the most important thing is just run it with vigor.
Hit. 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 Hit.
Jordan's up next.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed watching this today, and hopefully I've dispelled some of the myths around these lever action rifles that you've heard in the past, things about black powder, how you can clear that in the field, the fact that it doesn't actually prevent you from being able to cycle the gun and use it effectively. And I personally think that the 1873 Winchester lever gun in 4440 was kind of a watermark, or a high watermark of the design. It was the perfect combination of speed, accuracy, and power. It was sufficient for the job and task at hand at the time, and as you can see in the match here, that it still performs pretty well today, even in 2019. As for the pistol, of course, the pistol is the single action Army, and this left some things to be desired. It was reliable and powerful, but it's slow to reload, and there are issues with that in general. So we saw the 1875 Schofield really jump this in terms of technology, and that gun had too much complexity for being issued to standard soldiers in the field, and as a result, the single action Army soldiered on. We see even today that military cartridges and military guns are extremely popular with the civilian audience, and that was no different back then. When the 4440, or excuse me, when the 4570 became a thing, that cartridge became popular because the military was using it, even the 5070 cartridge. The 4440 did never see military adaptation, but the 45 Colt did That's why you see the 44 Colt living on in more of a legacy today than the 4440 or 44 Winchester centerfire rifle. But on InRange, quite a few years back, I did a video talking about the 1860 Henry being the first assault rifle. And I don't mean it by the legal term that we see today passed around so stupidly. I mean it in terms of its effect on the field of being an intermediate cartridge and being able to deploy a high rate of fire accurately. And by 1873, they had made that such an efficient rifle with 13 plus rounds in the gun, with 44 Winchester centerfire, that this truly was the fighting rifle of its day. Guys, thank you for tuning into this. If you like this kind of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We're completely a crowd-funded resource. There's no monetization from anything but you, the viewer. No sponsors, nothing like that. And that's what allowed me to load all of these cartridges for you today and to shoot this rifle here on the clock. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you can't, I understand. Just subscribe to one of our channels. You can find them all on InRange.tv and share with your friends. Thank you very much.